Hey everybody, welcome to Church episode 91. A Father's Day episode. Of course, I want to start by wishing all of the fathers out there happiest of Father's Day. For those of you that are still here to share it with your families, obviously that's amazing. And to all the fallen fathers, the fathers that are no longer here, like my father, Gary Richardson, who was born in 1950. And who always had a love of motorcycles, who brought me into this world with his spark. Obviously, that's amazing. And to all the fallen that down. Fathers, the fathers that give thanks to the spark that my father gave me. I am going to raise my bowl in a few seconds to my dad and all the dads. But first, let's invite our panel in. They're sitting there anxiously awaiting for the link. We got some nice people coming in today. Looking forward to that. Get over to the Skype invite and push enter on that. And this is great. Episode 91, Father's Day. I really am looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice one. We had a great hash episode last week where we had all sorts of different hash makers and oil makers on and talking about the different, I guess, just the different sort of directions that concentration.
I can't hear you.
Hey, good morning, Todd.
Oh, I know, but I can hear you now.
Excellent. I'm glad, because when you said I can't hear you, I was like, I'm not really ready to do a bunch of troubleshooting.
Why must that be the first thing he said? Right?
Welcome, Etienne.
Good morning and happy Father's Day to you, sir, and all the fathers out there today.
Yes, indeed. I was holding up the picture of my father earlier, Mr. Gary Richardson. There he is.
Much love there, buddy.
Well,
that man started something, so give him thanks.
I told him, I said earlier, thanks for the spark, Dad. Thanks for the spark. You know, dads, they provide this crucial spark for us that whether you get along with your father or not, he definitely provided that spark. Mom's a big part of it as well, so we always love to give thanks on Mother's Day and Father's Day for the life. For the life. So I think it's time to raise my bowl. I got my sapphire dish so clean. I've never had a bowl that you can clean like this sapphire dish. Turned it up to 1100 degrees, and it is just ready to go. Not at 1100 degrees anymore.
Well, I would like to see how long yours lasts, because mine straight just fell apart doing that. Literally fell apart.
Well, it's been on almost every day I've had it. I've had it about a month and a half so far, and yes, I'm watching every day for any type of stress cracks. I do have this big washer.
Look at what mine did. It just fell apart. The piece just fell.
Did you have the washer?
Of course, I got the whole kit, and this is only sapphire number 2, so.
A lot of people didn't put the
I put the washer on.
Right underneath the sapphire, not underneath the actual element.
Oh no, right under the dish.
Yeah, that's too bad, dude.
It is. It's my second one too, and you know what? I like to do what you do, which is I like to leave it actually not now. I like to leave it on 1,000 and turn it on, let it burn everything off, and then turn it off, and then hit it on the low.
Yeah, I'm even turning it up to 1200, and then I find it really cleans the dish like fast. Wonderful.
I go 1140 actually. Good morning. Happy Father's Day to you, Mark.
Welcome, Johnny B and Skunkman Sam. Both just popped into the Hash Church room today. We got plenty of regulars, and I've also invited my friend Alexander in to talk a little bit about his journey that he's had with his small daughter and with epilepsy. Just mute your mic when you're not talking there, Johnny B. Please, please. Always makes it easier. That way we don't have to hear all the little sort of clickering and clackering. For me, not so bad, but I bet you for the guys with the headphones on, it's more noticeable.
I think I was the clicker that time. I used the Zippo.
Oh,
how dare you?
Old school with the Zippo.
No, it's still.
Oh.
Modded.
Modded, indeed.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out, some love. I went to the High Times Cannabis Cup yesterday. Todd and I went. And I just got to give a shout out to everybody. I had a bunch of people just come up and just say, "Hey, saw you on Hash Church. You want to say thank you, shake your hand," and went on their way. It was really awesome. So many people, and needless to say, got all kinds of wonderful fire and fun little things. Thanks to Alana Green Fire and various other people, BJ and other people were out there, and they're out there again today. So get on out there to the High Times Cannabis Cup if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw a little bit of video that Solventless is More posted. Joseph O'Connor posted a few little things from Tony's booth there, and it looked pretty good. He was just sitting there doling out the dabs. He's definitely
That's
repping.
all he was doing. I popped over there, and what's cool is he had a fan going. He's putting the terps in a humidifying fan, and you can walk by and get showered with, like, I was getting a nice cookie shower earlier, which was really kind of cool. And yeah, he was sitting there the entire time just dabbing after dab, and there was just a line the entire time. Well,
that's how the Bubbleman booth's been doing it for over 15 years. That's basically what we started at the Cannabis Cup, and I'll never forget the first year I started it. I had seen guys like Adam from Hempworks and TH Seeds do the Trichome Challenge, which was really the original inspiration that brought me to be, well, I want to basically give every single person a bong rip. And when I started,
tell people what that challenge is for those who don't know.
Yeah, well, the Trichome Challenge, for those of you that don't know, back in the mid-'90s to late '90s, Adam and Doug used to do a thing called the Trichome Challenge, and they would set it up so there was a nice big sort of fluffy chair, big sort of comfy chair. Usually it was elevated, because often the Trichome Challenge, in the beginning it started out of I think maybe a 1 or a 2 foot, but it eventually made it to like a 3 or a 4 foot glass pipe. So you would sit in the chair. He would pack the bowl full of trichomes, which was, you know, key for SIFT at the time. By no means was it a 99%, but it was still definitely like 60 to 70 to 80% heads, and it would grab you by the throat. And the challenge was that he would take a video camera, Adam style, duct tape the thing, which was hilarious because the cameras weren't that small back then. Duct tape it to the bottom of the base of the bong, which was often like a Chills bong or something, so it had one of those big bases. And the camera would be facing straight up. And Adam definitely has this footage. And I should ask him one day if I could post some on Bubbleman's World, because it's hilarious. It's just people after person taking a bong rip of SIFT and then trying to hold it in for 10 seconds and then exhale. And there's all sorts of explosive coughs. People are spitting. People are snotting. People are like on the ground rolling over. It was actually quite a funny thing. It inspired me to basically just, you know, give hits away to every single person, which eventually got me to the point where I was giving close to 100 grams away in 5 days at the Cannabis Cup, because it was just nonstop. The lineup would literally go for 5 days. Every day we'd come back and, oh, there's the lineup again. And it's nice to see Tony keeping that alive by getting the lineups out and just giving everyone a taste. Isn't that?
I have footage of that too. We've when we used to do it at Cannabis in Amsterdam.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Me and Adam had matching fucking video cameras back then. So we used to be able to use each other's remotes. We had all had those Sonys for a while.
The Cannabis in Amsterdam, of course, was the CIA, which was pre the KGB, which was No Good Buds. And that was also Adam and Doug, the same guys that did Hempworks, and Adam Dunn, obviously, who does the Adam Dunn Show. He's continually doing fun things in the cannabis industry. Sure was fun back then, man. I always appreciated the things that Adam brought to the plate. By far my favorite, which I've mentioned a few times on Hash Church, has to be driving around in his little 3-wheel truck with his little remote control audio. He had the little audio thing on top, and he'd drive by and say like just absurdly ridiculous things, like Arian's haze will give you cancer, like right in front of Arian's shop with Arian and Franco standing right there, like, and I'm in the truck like, dude, are you serious? And they knew it was just Adam. Like, he was definitely not fucking with them in a way like, fuck you, but definitely like busting their balls hard. And they took it well. They're good guys. Those guys know how to take a good laugh. And obviously,
what happened to Dougie? What's he been up to? I know Adam's doing his show. What's Dougie up to?
Doug's been running the Hemp Hoodlum Company. It's plenty of business for him. He does the shows, so you'll see him in the Czech Republic or in the UK or in Spain. He's always at the shows running the Hempworks booth. So he's still kind of doing Amsterdam and running things on that side. Welcome, Mr. Mark Scialdone, and happy Father's Day to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Happy Father's Day to you, Mark.
Thank you. It's nice to be a father. I woke up today with my son saying, Dada, Dada, Dada. I was like, perfect. That's a Father's Day gift right there.
You sure he wasn't saying dab, dab?
Dabba, 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 bubble.
Dabby, dabby.
He might have been saying that. I don't know. He is. Kids are starting young these days, but I'm not quite sure. 2 is. He'd be the hardcore of the hardcore at 2. Like, he's definitely clean of dabs these days. But he supports cannabis and cannabis freedoms, and he would fight for all of your rights to use this plant till the end.
Happy Father's Day there, Doctor.
Well, thank you very much. Being a dad is a great thing to be.
Was it in Airplane when all the doctors are meeting and they're like, doctor, 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 doctor? You remember that scene?
It was Airplane. It was the first one.
Airplane. That's a great
So hard.
Doctor, doctor, doctor.
I think they may have borrowed that from MASH, right?
They may have, but they made it funnier.
Yeah.
Roger, over, Roger, over, under, Roger, over. That was the greatest movie. Best laughs per square minute, of any comedy ever.
Yeah, definitely not too shabby whatsoever. Pretty classic. I think it's time to blow smoke towards the Vatican.
So what's your, all right, here's a question for all you. What's your favorite stoner movie? What movie that you can just put on and watch any single time and get stoned to?
No, I haven't watched it in a long time. I don't really watch stoner movies too often, but I'd probably have to say Half-Baked.
I gotta say something, Mark. You kind of are a stoner movie, but continue, please.
Half-Baked would be mine. I mean, Chappelle and that whole crew and the guy killing the horse with the Funyuns, and that shit was funny. Let's just say I'm not getting the respect a cop killer deserves in here.
Whoa! Don't ever say that on House Church.
Well, he killed the horse accidentally, remember? And they were asking him how he was doing, and he was not doing well. He was all fishing out in prison. Fish! Funny comedy. Of course, hey, I come from a police family. I'm definitely not promoting anyone to kill anyone.
I'm not advocating violence against law enforcement.
Especially on weed.
On weed.
On weed. You ever take
Or their horses. I really like the horses, too, by the way. I'm going to throw that out there. I got way more compassion for the,
Here's
cop
some
dogs and cop horses.
Dude, I legitimately felt bad for that horse, but Jesus Christ, what a pig.
I think the best line from this, but have you ever sucked dick for pot?
Yeah, the Bob Saget line was basically probably the most popular line, next to maybe Abba Zaba, you my only friend.
It was, comedy that resonates is really truthful comedy. And I think for a lot of people, we know that cannabis is not addictive like a lot of the substances around us every day. So it was a great example of how absurd comparing cannabis to cocaine actually is.
Oh, fuck.
Buttercup. Buttercup was the horse?
Yeah, someone mentioned it in chat. They're like, Summit Strain Review remembered Buttercup.
I have to say Up in Smoke because as a kid, when I first saw that film and, recognized there was a culture and, it was just, I don't know, it connected a lot of dots for me and I loved it. And then whatever, and then to be able to grow up, move to LA, meet Tommy Chong, yeah, it was definitely the dream movie for me.
I don't know if it's a stoner movie or not, but I have to say, I'm really not a fan of the genre of stoner movies, but I can watch Blazing Saddles anytime when I'm high and laugh my fucking ass off. Time and time again. I know it has some racist shit. It's an old movie, but that movie was off the fucking chains.
It was kind of anti-racist too, though. I mean, that was what I really liked about, obviously.
Oh, it confronted racism straightforward.
Head on.
And straightforward in a day when it was very, no one really did that.
No, he was a hero to me theatrically. The messages he was putting out were strong.
Isn't there a joint rolling scene in Blazing Saddles where Cleveland Little and Gene Wilder are right there, and Gene Wilder twists the joint up, right?
Twisting Twain up.
I know. There's the big joint in the history of the world.
anything by Mel Brooks is a good watch.
Absolutely. Well agreed. I almost wish Monty Python would have done a little bit of some cannabis humor, because those guys were also, as far as a comedy troupe goes, and as far as sort of, mocking reality, they seem to nail it pretty good, at least the political aspects of it.
And they didn't need weed to be fucking great, but I would have loved to have seen a Monty Python weed sketch for sure.
Classic weed sketch, for those of you that may or may not remember. The kid's in the hall. He makes a deal with the devil to give his jean jacket for connection to herb, because he can't find herb the whole skit. He's trying to find herb from the prostitutes. They've got meth and crack and ice, and literally they name off like 100 horrible, bad, addictive, like nasty, illegal drugs. He's just looking for bud. In the end, he gets like the big dreadlock hair that's all buds. He finishes the scene with cutting a bud off of his dread. Pretty classic, hilarious.
Hey, Sam, you haven't chimed in. What movie do you like to watch and get high to?
I don't know. I think I've got about 100 of them. I don't care how stupid it is. I bought it.
Hey, Sam, happy Father's Day to you.
No problem. I've got two daughters and a granddaughter, so I guess I'm liable for that.
Yeah, you gotta own it. You gotta own the Father's Day. That's it. It's awesome. Yeah, Sam is a huge movie aficionado. It's true.
So none takes the cake? You don't have a top 5 of those? Just any? Sam?
I'd have to think for a minute. Let me think for a minute, and then I'll get right back to you.
All right, well, while Sam's thinking, I'm going to hit some of this freeze-dried West Coast concentrate 73U.
Well, I was just puffing on this OG Kush Trim Bin hash, and then I dabbed some of this, of course, Blue River Terps onto this screen, held it on the nail here, and I am in another level. Thank you.
Doing this Bubbleman Kush cleaner.
Oh, shit!
Oh, let's see that.
And that's the terp oil. Oh my god, dude. That's like 5 or 6 drops of Kush cleaner rosin or terpenes in there.
Dude, it is spectacularly delicious.
Wow. I'm envious of you. I have some beautiful shit. Kush cleaner is one of my favorites, both Kush cleaner and block cleaner. I just love the terpene profile on those two. It's very, very nice. Well, getting irie on a Father's Day feels about right. A lot of fathers out there. I hope they're all having a good day, enjoying their kids and their family. It's going to be a busy one out there. Oh, I wanted to give a shout out to the Cannabis and Hemp Conference. My good friend Salome is throwing a conference in Vancouver at the Bayshore Westin, I believe, on July 9th and 10th. If you guys are in and around Vancouver, it would be awesome to see you. I'm going to be doing Hash Church from their second stage on Sunday. I think I might be speaking another day, but I'm not exactly sure. But if you punch it into Google, it comes up as cambridgehouse.com/ whatever the conference is called, and you guys can check it out there. So if you are in Vancouver in July, we'd love to see you.
You were asking me about movies. I mean, I'm pretty easy. Besides the Cheech and Chong ones, stupid ones like Ridgemont High, or yeah, there was another one I was thinking of, but it's not really about. I gotta remember. I forgot it.
Dude,
Well,
that's
the
my
Breakfast
skull.
Right? The Breakfast Club, at the end of the Breakfast Club, they all got high in high school. This is extremely important because for a lot of people, this was totally taboo. You can't smoke weed in the library of your high school.
Yo, hey, Hab, you got my doobage?
There's probably only one place more taboo than puffing weed in a high school, which I definitely have done, as well as in certain ministerial offices. But
Inside a church.
The one that's not really a pop movie, but it is The Big Lebowski.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's smoking all through that. That's a total stoner movie, man.
Dude.
And it's a different kind. It's it's more, upper class.
Well, it sure was a funny one and a classic. I'd say The Big Lebowski basically made cult status.
Yeah, I got to second that Breakfast Club. I would probably put that one there in my top 5 because, one, it's one of my all-time favorite movies, and definitely the smoking scene is without a doubt. And, you couldn't make that movie today. Kids today have, with phones and computers and stuff, that movie wouldn't make much sense. But as isolated as it was a quintessential high school movie when I was in junior high and high school.
You might be able to pull it off in 2016, where the principal is a real tech genius and he's created the detention room to be a Faraday cage.
Well, let's not forget Animal House, right, where they actually get high with Donald Sutherland in the bathtub, and they talk about the universe inside the molecules inside his finger.
Oh my God!
Epic, right?
Epic stoner movies. Of course, recently the funny one was the Pineapple Express. That shit was pretty funny. Seth Rogen there.
And if you want to get old, let's go with Easy Rider.
Easy Rider. Man, you know what, though? Easy Rider I did not like the way that movie ended.
That was the point.
Life was tough back then. I was lucky to make it this far.
That smoking weed was pivotal, man. When he's asking Nicholson if he's ever done it, that is really one of the best scenes in cinema around cannabis and trying to break through the prejudice that stands there between somebody who's drinking and thinks that weed's gonna hurt you, but I'm okay with this whiskey. It spoke to it spoke to a whole generation, because all these alcoholic parents that were really saying no to their kids, hippie drugs, but we're sitting there smoking cigarettes and drinking, and saying we're fine, you're wrong.
Yep.
And that was a great way to say it.
Well, see, I grew up in southern Louisiana where that happened. Actually, where they were shot literally was just a couple miles up from where I grew up. So, well aware of the culture and subculture. And yeah, I don't think anybody was happy how that movie ended in any way, shape, or form.
No, I would have loved to have seen that movie in a different ending where they they made it, they got to the spot and they sold all their shit and it was a bummer. Great movie though.
Caddyshack was pretty funny.
Anything with Bill Murray in it is pretty funny. In my opinion, the guy is just like a savant comedian actor. He just
Roger Dangerfield was a pothead.
Yeah?
Yes.
Rodney Dangerfield was a pothead. Well, here's our special guest. Alexander Rapetsky is in the house. How you doing today, Alexander?
Good. How you doing, man?
Dude, first of all, thank you for just showing up on one click and sounding amazing with headphones in your ears. That's like a Hash Church major.
I only have one headphone, man.
Yeah, well, that works beautifully. So happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day to everyone.
A very happy Father's Day to you, sir. You're a hero, so thank you very much for being not just a father, but going above and beyond as a father.
Well, thank you for saying so, but I think anyone would do the same if needed, so I don't consider myself a hero in any way, but thanks for the compliment.
Well, in regards to that, why don't you sort of open up and let the room know? I sent your story out to a few of the panel members, so they got to check it out, but I'm not sure if everyone watching knows exactly your story, but why don't you put it in your words how your journey began and walk us through the journey that you've been on.
Sure. Well, I guess, I've always been pro-cannabis in the sense of, I've never thought it was bad or dangerous in any way, but from a medical perspective, I started considering it when about, I guess this is going back 14 years ago. I have really bad arthritis, as you may be able to tell from looking at my hand here. I started using it as an analgesic, and because of that, started looking at its medicinal properties and chemical compounds more closely than I had before when I was just smoking a joint or whatever, and that was fine. And then in September of 2012, my daughter was diagnosed with intractable epilepsy, which was devastating because doctors basically were telling us like she may end up in a wheelchair and on a feeding tube.
How old was she at this time?
3 months. 3 months old. It was not cool. So you know, I'm not anti-establishment in any way. I'm not anti-pharmaceutical necessarily. They started giving her a whole bunch of drugs, ACTH, Sabril, topiramate, like, I don't know. We went through about 9, I guess. During that time, I decided to start researching neuroscience so that I could just basically understand and communicate intelligently with the doctors. And during that same time, I started looking at cannabis. I read a report from Washington about a kid using it as an anti-epileptic control. I spoke to a couple adults who had been using it to cease tremors and seizures, and found myself becoming more and more well versed in neuroscience and GABA protein blocking, et cetera, and started looking at cannabis. So every drug she was on was just failing. She was having constant subclinical seizures all the time, even when we couldn't see a seizure. And they wanted to put her on a feeding tube in the ketogenic diet and then add another drug. And I said, you know what? Before we do this, we've tried 9 traditional therapies. None of them are working. I'd like to try high CBD cannabis and see if that works. Doctor said no. Doctor said no. Another doctor said no. I literally started hammering her pediatrician with just scholarly articles and different pieces of research and anecdotal reports and theories that I had come up with, etc. He finally agreed in I guess it was late fall 2014. Late spring 2014 to write a prescription, and this was just as the MMPR was coming into play. And so he said to me straight up, like, I'll write you this prescription, but I can't help you with dosing. I can't talk to you about interactions. I can't talk to you about titration. Nothing. So that's on you. I said, okay, I'll take that on. Her neurologist at the time said, don't do this. Don't do this. After 3 days, starting on cannabis oil, she stopped having seizures that we could see, although I couldn't make a statement at that point because, so this is November 2014, I couldn't make a statement because we hadn't had an EEG, so I couldn't tell if there was any subclinical activity, which is the really damaging that was happening. So after about 6 weeks, her doctor finally agreed to give her an EEG, so it was January 2015, I guess. Is that right? Yeah, 19 months ago or so. And boom, it was a clear EEG for the first time. She'd had 18 in 2 years, and they were always chaos. So 6 weeks on cannabis oil and a clear EEG. Doctors were amazed. I thought they were going to say, oh, we attribute this to growth patterns or something like that. They clearly said, like, obviously the cannabis is working because we've never seen a clear EEG. Fast forward now 2 years, she's had 3 more clear EEGs. She's not having seizures. She is still developmentally delayed for a 4-year-old, but she's now walking, running, beating up on her brother, taking his jelly sandwich, so it's like she's doing a lot of. She's not a typical developing child, but she's doing a lot of, quote, normal things, which is great.
Well, as she's coming around.
The first oil that you gave her, do you know what the milligrams of THC and CBD was?
Yeah, so that was the other problem, I guess. Until the Owen Smith ruling last summer, it was what I was doing, even though I had a prescription, was illegal, right? But I had a lawyer and stuff, and he said, "Don't worry about it, and I'll defend you if I need to." But so I've been making it myself and having everything lab tested each batch, so that I know exactly how much is in it. And what I do is I combine a few different types of cannabis oil to attain a ratio of it varies a little bit, but it's about 1 to 21 THC to CBD. So her dosing is about 2.4 milligrams of CBD per pound, I believe she's on right now. So she's getting about 68 milligrams a day of CBD and 3 milligrams of THC.
Are you able to get a consistent supply to supplier?
Well, it's been a little bit difficult. Like, as I guess you guys all know, and most people know, the plant is variable, obviously, from top to bottom, bud to bud, plant to plant. I've been very, very diligent in testing each batch of oil I make so that I can at least know what the variance is and adjust the dosing, accordingly. I've been able to get a relatively consistent supply. There's a couple LPs. I'm not going to start endorsing people that are selling relatively consistent product right now. So, and sorry.
To be honest, if you're producing 20-to-1 ratio, then the minor variations from different growth parameters aren't going to be relevant. You're going to get the results you want.
Right, as long as I can maintain the same ratio. Exactly. So what I've had to do is, when one batch comes back, for example, I made a batch of oil using a BHO, closed loop extraction. I came back 1 to 14, and I had some other product that was 1 to 23. So I mixed them in a ratio to get back to that same 1 to 20 range for her. And quite frankly, unfortunately it's a bit of an experiment because I'm always adjusting the dose and trying to play around, but she's doing really well, and she's basically off all pharmaceuticals now. We've been weaning her last pharma for 14 months because she was on such a high dose, and I wanted to go really slowly. So she's almost off that.
And I guess there's no real denying that if you had not found cannabis and she continued to go down the road of having more and more seizures, that she would have suffered forms of brain damage. She may have never learned to walk.
Yeah, for sure.
Ramifications. These are not light ramifications.
Well, on top of that, you're taking a risk dealing with doctors. So how were your doctor's response to seeing the change in her going from those very serious meds straight to cannabis and then going seizure-free?
That's actually been very interesting and rewarding, I guess.
Well, it had to be challenging as well because it was very risky from the get-go.
Well, yeah, I mean, they said we don't think this is going to work. You can do it if you want, but it's on you. So if it had gone negatively, that's my fault too. Luckily, that wasn't the case, and she's had a great improvement. And her doctor actually, one of her neurologists actually said to me maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, like, thank you for disobeying our medical advice because we never thought we'd see her do this well. So good on you.
It just seems like we live in a bizarro world, Alexander, when I hear a story like that, and I think, so they're going to give you all of these fairly detrimental medications that themselves could be doing massive damage to her body and spirit and brain. And if anything goes wrong, they are not liable for that. Yet if you want to use a benign natural plant that actually works, it also has to come with the threat of, this is going to be on you.
Well, yeah. So it's obviously very backwards. I don't. I mean, I understand it. If a doctor, if a doctor's using something off-label, then it's a risk.
Yeah, but you had to take that risk yourself to actually jump off that diving board with your child. I mean, that had to be something you had to contemplate. It wasn't something that was just a light.
No, it was that. I did not take it lightly, and that's why I was very diligent in my testing, and and I did a lot of research. And but it's not like I created this treatment, and it's not like I didn't have jumping off points from research in terms of dosing. But what's really, I guess, Well, what's most rewarding about this journey is that my daughter's doing better, and that she's living a life of much higher quality. But that also that her doctors are now initiating clinical trials.
So take us back a second. So you're now finding cannabis because a lot of some parents are going to watch this and go, well, how did you go about finding what ratio worked for her? What did you start with? How did you start your initial find? Once you thought cannabis works, what were your next steps?
Well, I mean, we titrated up very slowly, and trust me, I get a lot of emails and phone calls from parents because I've done like national media and stuff about this, and people are calling me all the time. Like, I just try to point them in the right direction. The biggest loophole everyone's having trouble with is for pediatrics is that they can't find a doctor who will actually give them a license, right? And what I did was I was just very careful in how I increased her dose. Very, very.
Now,
very
at the same time you were giving her that, were you decreasing her dosage in any of her other medicines, or were they coinciding with?
No, it's never a good idea to do two things at once, right? So we kept her. She was on two drugs, valproic acid and topiramate, when we started the cannabis. And we kept her on the same dose until we saw that clean EEG about 7 weeks in, 6 or 7 weeks, at which point her doctor said, if you want to start weaning, I would suggest start weaning topiramate first and go very slowly. And so we did that under their guidance. We had another EEG after about 5 months. When she was off it was still clean. So then we decided to start weaning valproic acid.
That's incredible. And she had never had a clean one before, correct?
No, she'd had 18, and they were all like total chaos. And she just recently had I actually requested because she woke up one night a few months ago and she was kind of shivering. And I didn't think it was a seizure, but it made me worried. And I think she was just cold or she had a nightmare or something. So I actually requested a 20-hour EEG, which we just did, I think 3 weeks ago, and that came back clean too.
Do you want to explain to the people watching about the EEG, just think of some people that might not have any idea, maybe a younger group of people that are watching and they just want to get on the same page, so maybe explain that a little bit.
So in simple terms, an EEG is like, they attach electrodes all over your skull, and they're reading, I think, 22 points of your brain waves. And your brain is an electrical machine, right? So it's always firing electrical impulses, and that's how the synaptic connections are communicating with each other. So a normal EEG is sort of like, I mean, there's obviously variants, but you're seeing like a sine wave pattern of these 20 points of electrical input on your brain. So when you think of something, there's a spike. If there's a loud noise, you'll see a spike because your brain's reacting. Hers was just like crisscrossing all over the place all the time, misfiring. So in a really simple analogy, it's almost too simple. I feel almost bad using it, but like imagine, for example, if you're watching a movie and someone was turning the TV off and on, 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 and then ask you, oh, what happened for the last 10 minutes? You wouldn't know because it was being interrupted all the time. So that's what was happening in her brain. It was cross-firing.
All right, thanks for that explanation, Alexander.
Was the oil that you were using decarboxylated? So you're making a fully decarboxylated CBD oil?
Yeah, exactly. So I've made it multiple ways. I've done alcohol extractions, butane closed loop extractions. I've done infusions, and then I decarb the. Usually I prefer to do an alcohol or a butane, or I don't have access to a CO2 machine, or I do that. But then you end up with like a piece of resin, and then I decarb the resin at around 284 degrees, I think, for about 42 minutes, I believe, and then I mix it into, right now I'm using an MCT oil carrier, just because if I was to give her the resin straight without mixing it into a carrier, we believe that the fatty oil helps uptake, right? But B, it'd be very hard to dose accurately if you're using a tiny amount versus when I mix it in at a specific ratio, and I know, and then I get it tested, so I know I'm giving her 1 milliliter. It's very easy to dose 1 milliliter. It's very hard to dose like 0.02 milliliters, right?
So how did you arrive at the 20-to-1 ratio? How did you know that was the one that worked? Did she give you signs, or what was the...
It was really just trial and error. Unfortunately, it's I've been experimenting.
By the way, I think Epidiolex, which is GW's formulation in the clinic for epilepsy, is a 20-to-1 ratio, so it's a good place to start.
I'm not. Yeah, is it? I don't know. I haven't. I've read a lot about Epidiolex, and I've kept up with the reports, the studies in New York.
Lower, but Epidiolex, I think, is about 20-to-1.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the actual stats on it, but you're probably right. I know, like the Charlotte's Web is more like 28-30-to-1. Currently, you can't get that. Well, you can't. They're not shipping it to Canada right now, so it's not an option. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to probably try to decrease her THC a little bit, but the other thing is that, I mean, if there's any truth to the entourage effect, which I believe there is, then that states that, you know, THC helps with the uptake and kind of catalyzes the CBD. And look, I know people are treating seizure activity with THCA only, and it's working. So, I mean, as we all know, there's tons of studies going on about the human genome and how it compares to the cannabis genetic, phenotypical, blah blah blah. It's still very personal medicine, and I'm really excited to have, you know, about the fact that there's doctors who are now starting to come on board and like want to study this, you know.
So let's go back to the doctors for a second. What province are you in Canada?
I'm in Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, so you're in Ontario. So you were able to find a doctor, or not really find a doctor, you were able to educate a doctor to the point where he or she felt comfortable enough to write your daughter that prescription.
Correct.
It's not impossible. You took the sort of the Johnny Berfelo method, which I watched John do as well. He just would never accept no from the doctor. He'd just be like, well, I'll just educate this doctor. They're pretty smart people, doctors, for the most part. They're educated people, so when you start giving them data, they know how to read the data, they know how to research the data, and hats off to both of you guys for doing it like that, because it seems right now that a lot of people are probably watching, like, where can I find a doctor? And the doctors don't want to be put on blast. That makes them nervous, and it's a real sort of dichotomous situation that, unfortunately, you know, people like your daughter are trapped in the middle of, and it's very unfair to me that that's not getting dealt with, like, kind of immediately. People are all complaining about, oh, Trudeau's making it legal, they should stop the arrest. It's like, yeah, stop the arrests, but how about, like, make sure doctors start, you know, are in a position where they don't have to feel in fear of their practice license to be able to write a simple prescription for a benign plant that's never really caused harm in anyone.
For sure, and that's why I think it's so important that you know, when with legalization, I'm all for recreational legalization. I mean, 100%, let's do it. But I think the government has to be very aware of the fact that there should still be a dual stream. So if someone just wants some cannabis because they want it, that's great, let them have it. But if someone is trying to also, if someone else is trying to treat a very specific ailment, and they want physician guidance, they should be able to get that.
I think you're right. You know, Alexander, you're a real hero to me. My mom, when I was a little boy, I had numerous tumors, and 9 times in 8 years, between ages 2 and 10, and my mom just got sick of it. And yeah, it was 1979, so there was a lot more prejudice back then. She was sitting in a doctor's office, and she read in Good Housekeeping that cancer patients were benefiting from cannabis. So she brought it up, to my pediatrician, and he, at that point, was exasperated and wasn't against it, and they tried it out on me back then. Here we are today. So I think what you're doing is heroic. And I went into a bit of a spontaneous remission for a number of years, and then only had one more tumor, and I've lived a very healthy life since. So I think what we're doing.
Well, that's what we have to do. We have to educate our doctors, and if you have the condition, like Mark's saying, I never gave up. I kept pounding on that same doctor, and at the same time, when you're doing that, you're educating yourself on your own condition, and that's why I learned so much about what was going on with me, is because I just kept on doing more research about what was going on with me, and I just kept handing it to my doctor. And at the same time, I was educating myself and others around it, just like yourself. That's great. What you're doing is getting to the people and educating them on epilepsy and how it's helping your daughter. I've dealt with a young girl here, Haley Rose, since she was like 13. She's 21 now, and she had severe epilepsy. She had 8-10 gram mal seizures a day, and we found a strain that was high CBD to TC ratio for her called Haley's Comet.
Yeah, I know her actually.
Yeah, so I still have that strain, and I've been working with that strain, and CBD's been a very important part of my life, and a lot of patients around me that I help and stuff like that. So it's really nice to hear what you're doing, and great to hear how your daughter's doing. I really like hearing that. It's a smile on my face every day to hearing those how kids are being helped with just a plant. It's amazing how well it just works, and the education is awesome.
It underscores, I think, the pharmaceutical company's fears. And there was a line in a Michael Moore movie where he was interviewing the health minister of France, asking him if he ever thought America would have basically socialized medicine. We could walk into a hospital and get treatment. And the minister said no, because he thought it was too many people to have healthy. It would be problematic to govern, was his reasoning, the why we'll always have expensive healthcare in America. And I think it's amazing to see parents now taking this into their own hands and finding their own solutions. And the fact that these solutions exist beyond the walls of the hospitals and the confines of these medical experts, it must be very unnerving to the powers that be that we are rejecting them in a way and finding our own solutions.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I mean, I think the funny thing that I've found about physicians and researchers is that even though it was really hard for us to get a prescription, obviously, and it took a lot of pounding on the desk, so to speak. Now that I've shown them lab test after lab test after lab test, and EEG result after EEG result after EEG result, they're in no way, shape, or form denying that it's effective, and they want to learn more, and I think it's just gonna it's people like yourselves who've been pushing this forward for a long time. That I think at some point, the doctors are willing to listen. They just want the data, right?
Doctors must want this dream medicine that actually works. They're like, whoa, I prescribe this to people, and then they come back in remission and healed and feeling great and high spirits, and it's like, that is a dream. It's such a great plant to prescribe for a medicine. Of course we would celebrate it recreationally, using it recreationally, because just for the fact alone that it could give your daughter a better life, I would celebrate it just for that.
Sure.
Shouldn't doctors of all groups of people not be approaching a solution with politics or prejudice?
I mean, I don't see that anywhere in the Hippocratic Oath.
Well, and this is where the problem lies. In all factuality, when Dr. Todd McCurry was working for the United States, what became the Department of Mental Health, he discovered that the cannabinoid information coming out of Israel in the 60s was classified. And he was honestly very upset at this, because he felt like it broke that oath he made to find the solutions and the bridges of path that would help people. And he actually quit his job. He became really a government whistleblower. He compiled the Indian Hemp Drugs Commission report, and he spent literally the rest of his life advocating cannabis law reform. And it was because of the research that was coming out of Israel and the discovery of THC in '63, and our government not knowing how to deal with that. So they classified the information
Right.
until it was out of the bag.
Well, I mean, the pharmaceutical industry in general is a little bit of a broken instrument. I mean, when a big drug company, you know, without naming names or anything, will go to a group of researchers about a new drug, they reserve the right to publish or bury the findings based on, you know, whatever they see fit. I was on a drug called Vioxx about 15 years ago for arthritic inflammation, and it had been on the market for about 18 months. I was on it for 17 months. I started it, like, I think even before it was officially available, and so I was like 28 or 29 at the time, I guess, and I got a phone call one morning. My girlfriend, now wife, at that time girlfriend, handed me the phone. She said, "It's your mom. She needs to talk to you." I said, "Hey, Mom, what's up?" She goes, "Don't take your medicine." And I'm like, "What? I have to. My back is killing me." She goes, "No, don't. I saw on the news it's being pulled off the shelves because it's causing heart attacks." So I was like, "What?" And so this was a drug that had gone through studies, been approved, gone to market. I had been on it for 18 months or however long. And then a follow-up study showed that it was causing people heart attacks. Now, I didn't have a heart attack, but like, that's ridiculous.
I wonder how many people who were on that medicine watching that news story had heart attacks at that very moment.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called practicing medicine, ladies and gentlemen.
So it's funny because I always say to people, like, you know, I feel really bad that essentially I'm, you know, kind of experimenting on my daughter, but in a sense, like, I've had conversations with neurologists who say, you know, we're experimenting because we don't truly understand the neurologic system in the mind. So we think this might work. We think that, like, they're trying tools that they think may work, but without. It's not as simple as, like, okay, we know if you have a blocked artery, we can replace it. It's a heart is a mechanical pump.
This was mentioned by Todd months ago on Hash Church. He said, remember, people, they are practicing medicine. It's called a medical practice. You get a license to practice medicine.
You got to take the word seriously, for sure you do. It's funny, we don't bring our cars to a practicing mechanic.
No.
A master mechanic. But the two areas we practice in, law and health.
Oh, I know.
Because we might get that really wrong, and we need some type of plausible deniability. Did you not read the sign?
Well, that's why they call it practicing. They can't call it finishing.
I don't have this mastered.
This is insane that this is the reality that we live in, and I just feel that although I feel very happy for Alexander because he's found something that works, I got to think there's a lineup of people behind him that have not found what works. They're still going to these doctor offices, and I wonder if these doctors can know about this and not tell people about it. Do they bite their lips because they're still worried? And here's the thing, they're not evil. They've been put into a system where they are constantly worried about their license to practice medicine because it's also their license to get paid. That is those are the combination, and it's kind of like I find it to be somewhat of a problem even in anything. If you're going to be an activist towards something, make sure that you don't have the bias of that thing being your main support. It could just not. You don't have as strong of a message, in my opinion, when that happens. So it's interesting. Hopefully we can change that in the near future, and we can start training these doctors a little bit differently at the schools that they're going to learn these intense practices in the first place.
Well, that is the root of it. We have to actually see syllabuses written around cannabis and endocannabinoids, and the interest is starting to perk up. But right now the doctors aren't taught any of what we're discussing. They have to go off on their own, and they have to learn it on their own because they're not going to have the ability to go to school and specialize in it yet.
Well,
that is going to change, though.
You just nailed it. So maybe that is a new part of medicine in the 21st century. You know, we're going to be looking at it like Understand that what we taught you is a fraction of what is known, and that you should never stop seeking knowledge as a doctor. You should constantly be looking for things that are helpful.
Well, they do. It's just they're just having most doctors are always constantly training and learning.
I wouldn't say most. If we're in a situation where people like Alexander are
they have to go for continual educational credits. They have to maintain their education and their practice. So they do require it, and what will happen is these auxiliary learning components will be taught afterwards, because this is something that's got to happen. I mean, right now I'm trying to talk to some people about writing a syllabus around Rob Clark's book, Cannabis, Evolution, and Ethnobotany, because it's the first serious book that you now can pick up. College, it's California University Press print. This is now a college level book. So now what we need to do is we got to write the way we're going to teach people around it and offer it to schools, honestly, all over the world, in my opinion, because I love Jack Heron. I love The Emperor Wears No Clothes. I've been an advocate of it for a quarter century. But this is a very different book. You know, this took 17 years of research. This is indisputably correct, and you know, it's implicitly done for education. So.
Yeah. For sure it is.
Somebody is going to take the risk and is actually going to start teaching the endocannabinoid system, because as Alexander has found out, you know, his daughter was definitely deficient, and others, parents, are finding that out as well and are coming around to it. So nobody, to my knowledge, is teaching the endocannabinoid system, which somebody really has to.
That's true. There's a large school now teaching it. There are schools. The University of Vermont now has a program to look at sort of medical aspects of cannabis, and more recently in Philadelphia, the Thomas Jefferson University is now going to be teaching this as part of medical school curriculum. Yeah. So
okay, students. So there you go. Go there.
Well, even more, the University of Vermont is giving these classes away free. I already signed up, and you can actually go online and you can participate in the classes.
Oh, really?
Yes, I posted in Hash Church, and I'll post it on the link in here. It's really quite it is them trying to bridge the gap, because right now there are no universities that are really embracing this as a serious topic as it should be. Here, I'm going to put a link in the chat we're using, and everybody that's listening should check this out. It's a 2016 Cannabis Speaker Series, From Botany to Medicine, and I'll post it in Hash Church right now.
Thank you, Todd. I knew you would do that.
Cool.
Yeah, this is the future, everybody. I mean, we're responsible for our own education, and then we're responsible for taking this information and allowing it to change our life. And this is where I think that, you know, I once pointed out to Jack that I felt like cannabis would remain illegal until he learned how to embrace how to eat healthy and the food information that was around him, because he ignored it so easily. And, you know, barbecue chicken for breakfast and, you know, steak for fucking lunch and dinner thereafter. And we lost him at 72. He had heart attacks due to cardiovascular problems, and he never really listened to his own advice. And I was driving him up the interstate one day, and I had him captive in his own truck. And I basically used the metaphor that, look, people are not listening to you about cannabis and hemp the same way you're so easily not listening to them about health and what you're eating. And until you learn how to listen to them and apply this uncomfortable information into your own life, like I did. I ate meat, and I was a full-on eat meater until I hung around with Jack, and I read The Emperor Wears No Clothes and the chapter on nutrition, and I didn't believe it, so I looked it up, and everywhere I looked it up, I learned more about food than I ever wanted to know, and it ruined it for me. It just ruined it for me. And I started looking at food for nutritionally what I was getting out of it, just like you would a job. If you wanted to get a job and you got paid 100 units a week and you digested it through your bank and they gave you a bill for 20, you wouldn't want to do it that way anymore. So I started looking at food like, what is a superfood? What is a calorie that's dense in nutrition? How can I get more of that into my life? Once I knew what it was, and it changed my whole spectrum of thinking. But it was an uncomfortable reality because I had to reject a lot of the empty calorie foods that I've grown comfortable with. And I think the same metaphor applies with cannabis. We get these very comfortable pharmaceutical drugs that we rely upon, that our doctors pass out, but they don't really work to the degree, like the junk food doesn't really work as nutritional sources.
True.
And we're forced now, like you've done, in a very brave way, to take your daughter down a path, a holistic path. And I think we all need to do this. We all have to come to this epiphany of responsibility for ourselves and start applying the information, uncomfortable as it may be, to our life.
Sorry, guys, I got to jump off for 1 second. My wife's just running out. I just got to say bye-bye.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit, Alex.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.
My mic is not then.
I just wanted to point out, I was looking up the formulation for Epidiolex, and it actually is a pure CBD extract. There is no THC in it. So it's not a 20.
Chimera, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
Okay, good, because I lost all the cameras. I clicked on Todd's link because someone said, Todd, that has all your personal info on it, the Rega online, and it actually took the box that I have all the panelists in, and I can't see anything anymore. I can hear everyone, but I can't control the camera, and I worry that if I close the box, I'll close Hash Church.
We can see you. We can hear you.
All right, well, maybe I'll just leave it. The camera might be stuck on one person for all I know.
It's my business information. I'll be okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the concern.
I gotta stop clicking on those links in that page. Oops.
Yeah, the camera's working fine. It's switching between people, it looks like.
All right, great, awesome. Well, then let's continue on. Sorry for throwing you guys off.
So I was just saying, you guys said earlier on, or someone said earlier on, that Epidiolex was a 20-to-1, and it's actually not. It's a 98% pure and CBD.
Their other one is the 1-to-1, right? So
yeah, the Scialdone is a 1-to-1.
Yeah, so there's no 20-to-1, so I'm not sure what you're referencing, Mark, on a 20-to-1. I mean, there are things out there. There are products out there.
My misunderstanding. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Just clarifying for the record. Doctors are definitely hesitant about giving THC to children, so. But hopefully this.
They're difficult with adults, much less children.
Yeah, they are. You know, I don't think doctors are bad people. Doctors, you know, they want to do no harm, and unfortunately, there's been a lot of bullshit said about cannabis and cannabis pharmacology, and you know, it's not a subject that's really accessible, like we're saying here. But that link that Todd put up to that course actually looks really interesting. It's all medical doctors or PhDs, and it looks like it really could be interesting.
Okay, you know, I just want to say I really love my doctors. I mean, they shaped my childhood in a positive way. They were fantastic human beings in my life, and I admire them to this day. I think fondly of them all the time because I'm just glad to be alive. I think that I've never really rejected, and I would say we shouldn't reject Western medicine. I'm not saying that all pharmaceuticals are bad. If I was born in 1870, I would have been dead by 1872. 100 years made the world a difference in what we understood in medicine and the tools we had. So I give thanks to Western medicine, the hospitals, and the doctors. I hope people don't think differently.
No, me too. I'd be dead if it wasn't for the medicine and Western medicine and what they've done for me, Todd. 100%. I mean, they saved my life on a few occasions. So I mean,
I
that's what
also
doctors
would
do.
be dead.
That's what they're there for.
I'm an insulin-dependent diabetic. Without insulin, I'd be dead.
What are we talking about? Western medicine and how we would be dead without it?
Well, yeah, basically.
We're both good and bad.
1700.
Yeah, I accept that. I liked, earlier Alexander was talking about how, he put his daughter on cannabis, but then he didn't, he continued to take his doctor's advice about the medications that she was already on, and I thought that was pretty smart. I think that once we stop hopping over to one side of the fence and we just tear that fence down, i.e. the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, we often are very easily divided as humans. We just tend to choose a side without even willingly choosing a side. But I like the way he went about sort of like, okay, well, I'll do cannabis and I'll be responsible for that. But I don't know about these other drugs. I'll let the doctors be responsible for those and weaning her off of those because they're the ones that put her on those. So I think that's it's as people who are pro-cannabis and because we've been forced into what would be considered an alternative option or lifestyle, It's constant that many people on this sort of in this group constantly are like, oh, the Western medicine's the devil. It's like, well, listen, until you get your arm torn off, and then I swear to God, you'll want it, because those motherfuckers will put that arm back on in a way that nobody else. Trust me, you won't be going to see your buddies at the bar like, hey man, you got to help me put my arm back on. You go to the doctors. So they have their place.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, as much as like I initially started using cannabis regularly for myself as an analgesic because I had a pretty big liver problem about 15 years ago. Because of my arthritis, my doctor had prescribed me a lot of opiates, and I mean, they told me I was going to be in a wheelchair at 30 when I was 22. But I'll echo that love for Western medicine because, you know, I'm still on certain drugs that have kept the arthritis at bay, like biologic modification drugs and stuff, which, you know, I'd probably be crippled if I wasn't on them. But I just removed the opiates from my own intake. So yeah, there's definitely. I would never argue that Western medicine is not beneficial and the traditional, you know, pharmaceuticals have no place in treatment. They do, right?
Absolutely. Sorry, I was just making sure that we were still live because I see that it says live up in the top corner, and I believe we're still live on the thing, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we're live, but it's just stuck on me, and I'm feeling pretty self-conscious.
But I've moved it around.
It's not working on the main YouTube feed as I'm watching. It's nothing but all Todd all the time. So you just smile and mimic, just move your lips, and we'll just try to.
Yeah, I'm not in anymore as the moderator. That's what's happened. I've come in as a different person, so I'm gonna have to.
Maybe Todd's the moderator now.
It's about time, man. We got rid of this bubble plot, and now we take over, man.
We have a
Todd got all. I think Todd got all egotistical and hijacked the chat. He hacked it, put in some kind of malicious code.
It's Todd TV.
This
Todd
is
McCormick
I
show.
can't get in I can't get in anymore the way I was. Which means I can't. Hey, as long as it's running live, I don't mind.
Can't you just come over to my house and then just, you know?
Oh, I like what Ontario Hashish says in the chat. He says, "Welcome to the Toddcast."
Yeah, this is hilarious. And you know what? I'm clicking on the camera. It ain't working.
You can jump out and come back, Todd.
Okay.
Yeah, try that, Todd.
Let's see who's going to become the main now.
Let's see where it's going to go. I can't believe.
Well,
Now it's moving around.
I like it much better without
We're going to find out when it goes on the YouTube here.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now it's on
missing Darrin.
Up, and it goes to Sam.
Sam.
Hi, Sam, you're the winner.
Nice, Sam.
Hey, that's an
Anthony, I've been
improvement from my
waiting for this for
perspective.
years and years.
Fucking weird.
Yeah, well, it's the Sam show now. Welcome back, Todd.
Well,
So, by the way, people, there was a major thing that happened this week. There was a big bust in California for Care by Design or Absolute Extracts. They were raided. Apparently, a disgruntled employee went and told the local police, and the county busted them, as well as the DEA there was only there as observers. Supposedly 9 people were arrested, but the owner was released the other night without any charges, bail, or anything. So currently what we know is I was sent a press release yesterday morning as it was on the way to the High Times Cup stating that